All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open Charles Duhigg's amazing book, The Power of Habit, to pull out a super powerful two-part formula, a formula for making changes that actually last. And our story, well, it starts in a pretty unlikely place, on the sidelines with one of the worst teams in the history of professional football.
So get this. We're going to start with a coach who took one of the worst teams in NFL history, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team the newspapers literally called America's orange doormat, and he bet their entire future on this really radical idea about human nature.
That coach's name was Tony Dungy, and his secret weapon? It wasn't some complicated new playbook. Nope. It was all about rewiring the automatic stuff his players did without thinking. You know, their habits.
See, to change a habit, you've got to understand how it's built. Scientists have a name for this, the habit loop. Think of it like the invisible wiring behind almost everything you do. And Dungy's whole bet was this: if he could just make his players' habits faster, more automatic, the other team just wouldn't be able to keep up.
And it's a really simple three-step process. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger that basically tells your brain, hey, let's go on autopilot. That cue then kicks off a routine, which could be anything, physical, mental, whatever. And then finally, you get a reward. And that reward is what tells your brain, yeah, let's remember this loop for next time.
Now, here's where Dungy was so smart. He didn't try to fight this whole loop. Instead, he just went after the middle piece, that routine. And that brings us right to the core idea of how you actually change a habit.
And here it is, the big one, the golden rule of habit change. The brilliant insight here is that you can't just erase a bad habit. It doesn't work that way. Instead, you keep the old trigger, you keep the same reward at the end, but you swap in a new routine. Think about that. Almost any behavior can be changed, as long as that cue and that reward stay the same.
Okay, so let's make this super practical. We're going to jump from the football field to a problem that, let's be honest, a lot of us can probably relate to: nail biting.
This is a perfect example of the golden rule in action. So there was this grad student, Mandy. Her cue was a feeling of tension in her fingertips. The routine? She'd bite her nails, and the reward she got was a little bit of physical stimulation. So what did her therapist do? He had her keep the cue and the reward, but just change the routine. So now, when she felt that tension, instead of biting, she'd just grip a pencil. And just like that, the bad habit vanished.
Okay, so Dungy has this amazing golden rule. The Buccaneers must have become unstoppable champions overnight, right? Well, not quite. I mean, don't get me wrong, the team got so much better. They went from being a total joke to a serious playoff contender year after year. But a really frustrating pattern started to show up right when the stakes were highest.
In those super critical, high-stress moments, the biggest games of the year, the system just failed. They'd choke. I mean, they'd get one game away from the Super Bowl, and then everything would completely fall apart.
Dungy even said it himself. His players, they trusted the system, most of the time. But when the pressure was really on, when everything was on the line, that trust just evaporated. They went right back to their old, comfortable habits, the ones that didn't work. And in 2001, believe it or not, even with all his success, Dungy was fired.
So this is the million-dollar question, right? What was missing? Why did these new, better habits just crumble under pressure? Well, the answer, it turns out, lies inside one of the most successful habit-changing organizations on the planet, Alcoholics Anonymous.
If you think about it, AA is basically a giant machine built around the golden rule. It helps people identify the cues that make them want to drink, and then it offers the same rewards they were looking for. You know, companionship, escape, a way to release feelings, but it delivers them through a brand new routine, going to meetings and having a sponsor. But researchers found out that its real, lasting power comes from something else entirely.
That missing ingredient? It's belief. For a new habit to actually stick, especially when you're stressed out or tempted, you have to truly believe that change is possible. And here's the kicker. It turns out that belief grows best when it's part of a community.
Okay, so let's bring this back to Tony Dungy. He gets a second chance, this time in Indianapolis with the Colts. He puts the exact same system into place and, guess what? Just like before, the team becomes a powerhouse that chokes in the playoffs. Same story, different city.
But then, everything changed. Right before Christmas in 2005, a terrible tragedy happened. Dungy's oldest son, Jamie, died by suicide. And the whole team, they watched their coach go through this unimaginable grief, but with this quiet strength. And in that moment of shared vulnerability, something really profound shifted.
The players, they rallied around their coach, but not like employees. They came together like a family. And suddenly, they weren't just a collection of star players anymore. They were a real team, a community. And they started to share this incredibly deep, communal belief, not just in each other, but in Dungy's system too.
And that newfound belief, it was about to face the ultimate test. It's the 2007 AFC Championship game. They are down big time against their biggest rivals. This was the exact kind of high-pressure cooker where they had always crumbled before.
But this time was different. You could feel it. Fueled by that belief, the players didn't go back to their old ways. They trusted the system. They executed their new habits perfectly, pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl.
And that story, right there, just perfectly illustrates the complete two-part formula for change that actually sticks. See, it's not just about the mechanics of a habit. It's about something much, much deeper. So here's the whole formula. Step 1, use the golden rule. You find a new routine that plugs into your old cue and gives you that same old reward. But, and this is the key, that is not enough. For that change to actually survive stress, to survive temptation, you absolutely need step 2. You need a community. You need a group of people to help you believe that change is really, truly possible. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Real, lasting transformation, it's not some lonely act of willpower. It's a team sport. It's communal. So the question for you isn't just what habit do I want to change? The real question is, who am I going to change it with?